swag, you have to answer some serious questions. Can anybody in the crowd here tell me who the influencer was, or her name, in Anthony's presentation from Nigeria? Sorry. It's correct! Try and spread this evenly, I'm sorry, I know there are a lot of answers there. The total number of global members on LinkedIn, yes, right at the back there. I think we're going to need about 20 prizes for the all multiple answers. Huh? 575, yes? Officially. Maybe. Now, here's a real tough one. When did Anthony set up his LinkedIn? 1992. I don't know this year. All right. We need somebody in the room to name one of LinkedIn's new products. Anybody?
Sponsored messages.
Oh! Sponsored messages. Yeah. And final one. What do you need to do to get hold of website demographics for your own site? Yes, sir.
Put it on the tag.
Drop it hot like an inside tag. Can you just tear that in half? It's fine.
It's just called Sammy the Shark.
And then I'm going to ask Sammy to just randomly hand out some prizes so anybody puts their hands up. Forwards, get that swag out there. Just a bit of housekeeping. Those of you looking for parking tickets or after the event, please stay for lunch, of course. But Samantha on my right, you will have the parking tickets if you need them. While I've got Samantha here on the right, this wouldn't have happened today without Samantha. I know Anthony mentioned it earlier, but a big thank you to Samantha. As you can imagine, to get 140 Joburgers out of their office on is a task of note. So a big congrats and really putting a world-class performance here. Even the New Yorkers in the crowd, those that I've met, have been impressed. So.
Wait, blew away Cape Town.
Blew away Cape Town. Thanks for all the questions. Keep them rolling and get involved, participate, and even go organic and ask a question out there. You don't even have to type it in. Our next speaker needs very little introduction. Most of you know him. Marius, co-founder of Turn Left. As you can see, Marius and I are trying to sport the same haircut, look and feel. It's part of our mission statement, look the same. And Anthony's gone with the same look as well, which we're impressed with, so thanks Anthony. Marius has been in the business for a long time, arguably the most experienced LinkedIn person on the continent. He's been working with LinkedIn since 2011. He has been a commercial director with Spark Media, Habari Media before. He started his career at Exclusive Books. I know he's a bit passionate about the booking world, so he often talks about that. One of the causes that he's crazy about is cancer in South Africa. I know he's quite passionate about supporting that and asks me and the company to contribute to that. But it's a noble cause and he believes quite passionately about it. But what's not on his profile, more importantly, is that he's a complete gaming geek. He's a proper techie, one of those gamers that you saw locked away and just forgot to shave for a few months and things like that. That's the head also. And he can speak Japanese, or he claims he can speak Japanese. I think it's only once he's had a few tequilas that the Japanese comes out. But going on, he's also got a tequila problem, that's for sure. But I also have that, so it doesn't matter. But probably the thing that we have to kind of ring fence all the time and police is his ability to be inappropriate. So I'm sure he might drop a comment during this presentation, so I apologize right now. Morris is going to bring it all home today. We've seen the big picture on LinkedIn. We've got into the new products, and he's going to start talking about South African data when it comes to LinkedIn. So give him a warm applause.
So we didn't mention it, but we're actually giving away a car as well. So if somebody doesn't want to claim these keys, we've got some. We have a winner. Good. Okay, guys. So thank you very much for attending today. It really is a massive honor. I've had the great fortune of being part of this LinkedIn journey for quite a long time. And I want to take us back in time a little bit to 2010. It was a great year for South Africa. A few things happened, locally and in the world. So obviously we played host to the Soccer World Cup, and we were fortunate enough to introduce the Vuvuzela to every soccer stadium in the world. People still love us for it. We met some strange orange or yellow little minions who became part of our lives. And LinkedIn officially started working in South Africa. And it was really strange. When we started, there was only about 650,000 people in South Africa and 5 million people across the continent. And it's amazing how far we've come today. So if we look at those profiles, as Laura mentioned, it was really all about getting your CV online and hopefully somebody would hire you. And today it really has shifted to be all about content and all about the activity and the value that we add to our network. But LinkedIn really remains this place that is all about connecting professionals and making them more productive and successful. I think I might have said that about 2 million times in the last 10 years. Like it is, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, productive and successful. But it is also about connecting the global workforce and creating opportunity. And for me, if we talk about the why we do things, the why our business does this, I think as a continent, we are all about the side hustle, we're all about the economic opportunity and finding value and creating value where it doesn't exist. And LinkedIn for me is all about connecting that opportunity, and it's the reason why we see this continuous growth. Or not. So LinkedIn has this thing called the economic graph, and it is a social representation of all of the different components when we think about our professional ecosystem. So we talk about this 575 million members, and I think in the global workforce there's about 3 or 4 billion individuals. So LinkedIn's done a great job in where it is today, but there's still a lot in the tarmac for them to build up. 15 million jobs at any point in time being advertised on the platform, creating this connection. 26 million companies, lots of great space in Africa. 50,000 skills, 60,000 schools, and then 109 billion updates viewed continuously. So what's really amazing for me about South Africa is just the level of insights and the level of individuals that you might not expect to find on the platform. That includes our 85 Sangomas and traditional healers, as well as the 644 Somers on the platform. And believe it or not, there is actually 5 people who claims that their skills are boerewors making. But LinkedIn really is this fast-growing platform. Over the last years, we have been one of the only social platforms that has grown in double digits year on year. And last year, we're the 3rd fastest growing platform behind Snapchat and Instagram. So people are really finding this value. And I'm pleased to say that we have finally reached that 7 million member mark in South Africa and then 30 million members across the continent. And the reason why I always talk about the 7 million mark is because there's only about 7.1, 7.2 million members who are like people in our population who are registered for personal income tax. And there's only about 4.1, 4.2 who pay income tax. So if we think about, yeah, it's all of us in the room. So if we think about the people that we engage in on the platform, it's people who are economically active, who are professional, people who contribute to the sustainability of our businesses. And it's fantastic that we have this ecosystem in which we can connect. 75,000 jobs currently circulating, 30,000 companies, all of those big schools, and people are pretty active. So we see about 60% of the total population coming back every month. And you obviously have, people who come back once a month, people who come back, a few times every day. And what's interesting is the value that we get out of the platform. So if we think about where these people are located, it's interesting that the Gauteng region is the biggest area by far. So about 40-45% of the total LinkedIn population in South Africa is within Gauteng, obviously followed by these coastal regions, Cape Town, Durban. There's a big part of the population also in places like Polokwane and Middelburg, where the mining and metals play a massive role in the infrastructure. So next spot prize, if anybody can name the stadium. Emirates Airline Park. We'll do two. So LinkedIn still adds 2 new members onto the platform every second, which means that roughly every day we add about 175,000 people. So that's a crazy number to think about. It's always these big numbers are hard to contextualize. But Emirates Airline Park seats 66,000 people when it's at full capacity. So every day LinkedIn adds 3 Emirates, 3 airline parks to the platform. And what's amazing is just to understand how people are using social platforms differently. And I always say that as an ecosystem, there's always room for opportunity, and there's room for every social platform in our strategy. But the way that people approach them are vastly different. So if I think about personal networks, I am really bad at birthdays, so that's what I use Facebook for. But the way that people approach conversations, the way that they engage on these platforms are very different. And you can see that just based on the conversations that people are having. And whenever I go out and present and I talk about LinkedIn, I generally try and get people to understand why I should use the platform first before I start talking about the brands. Because theoretically, if you know the value you can get out of the platform, then you can understand what my business could get out of it. So I've used LinkedIn because I want to connect with my industry and with my network. So the people that I meet on a daily basis, my clients, I can follow them, I can go follow their competitors. So it allows me to be more intelligent and more productive and successful. So I can spend 5 minutes before a meeting or after a meeting. I can go see what is happening in the world of my potential client or my business partner. I can see what their competitors are doing. I can see what's changed on their profiles. And I can use that information and be more intelligent in the way that I engage with people. I can also read and share and create long form posts. So the days of just having a blog is no longer necessary. So you can go and you can create these thought leadership articles, thought leadership pieces on the platform, and then you can use that and even just engage. So if I think about influencers, guys like Richard Branson, Guy Kawasaki, Arhani Huffington, our own Bob Collymore, and Kunzile, these are people who are sharing these thought leadership pieces across the world, which we can go and then go and engage in. And everybody, there's a few questions that everybody always asks me. So, why is LinkedIn more expensive than Facebook? I want to be an influencer. So some common questions. And I always say to people, you don't have to have an influencer to be an influencer. So if we think about what Anthony was saying around Ola, just the ability to connect to your network, to share thought leadership pieces, to talk about the things that matter to you. You have the ability and the scale and the opportunity on the platform to really do that. We obviously are about jobs because each of you is a very, very scarce resource and people are looking for scarce resources. So people do still go onto the platform to go and post jobs, to look for career opportunities and to be approached for career opportunities. And it makes complete sense. But that is just part of the ecosystem. So if people were only going onto the platform for jobs, then it would happen every 2 years or 3 years, or like generally when you're in media, like every 6 months. And then we go to learn. And this is a big component of where LinkedIn has started their investments and started this journey. So we know that in the world today, our skill set today is not going to be the skill set for 5 years. It's changing, it's going faster. And we need to try and stay up to date with that. And the ability to go to university, to go to tertiary education and study full time, like that's becoming a little bit more of a challenge. So being able to take this learning experience and take the learning path, break it into bite-sized pieces of content and then learn as you go is fantastic. So South Africans are pretty active on the platform. And just for the record, you guys don't have to take photos because all of this plus the recordings are all going to be available afterwards for everybody. Yes. So save some battery. So if we think about what people are doing on the platform, yes, they're absolutely there to go and look for job opportunities and advance their careers, but that's only a part of the ecosystem. So in general, we're there because we want to network with other individuals. We want to see what our colleagues and our business partners are doing, and we want to stay up to date with industry discussions. So if I think about Martin Sorrell and when he stepped out of WPP, ironically enough, that story was broken on LinkedIn. It was the first place where that content was shared. And LinkedIn today shares more than 9 billion content pieces on a daily basis. And people are engaging with content 15 times more often than they with job ads. And it's because people are looking for trust and credibility. So whenever we talk about brands, whenever we talk about what does brands need to do, we talk about building trust and credibility. Because if you buy a pair of shoes, and there's some funky shoes in the room, and funky socks, then if you don't like those socks, and you don't like those shoes, you throw them in the back of the cupboard, you go and give them to somebody else, or you return them. But when it comes to B2B decision making, when it comes to these big ticket price items, do I want to buy a car? Do I want to change the IT system for my business? Who's going to be my supplier? That has some serious repercussions for my business. And I don't take those decisions lightly because if I get it wrong, it has an impact on my business and it has a big impact on my career. So I really want to make sure that I invest the time and figure out whether it's the right choice. So people spend a lot of time building up their trust and credibility. And it's interesting that South Africans are actually more thoughtful about the way that they engage and who they engage with. So if we look, they're less likely to share, but they're more likely to stay up to date with industry discussions, which means people are reading more that they're sharing. So you have to make sure that when you put something in the feed, when you engage with your followers, when you engage with your audience, that it is something that adds value and amplifies the brand. Don't just post content for content's sake. Think about this thing, what am I going to do? What am I going to give people that's going to allow them to be more productive and successful? And is it going to add value? That so what factor. It's also important that they're less likely to follow companies. So that means if you're in a particular vertical, generally people will only follow the first 2 brands that they engage with. So make sure that when you are part of that consideration set, when you are in that zone, make sure that you make it worthwhile for the individual. You also see that they're, again, less likely to share, but they're more open to engaging in personal one-on-one communication. They will reach out to experts, but they generally tend to remain quiet in groups. And it makes sense. I mean, the group ecosystem has been removed from LinkedIn for a long time. But I think now that it's coming back, we see a lot of use cases. At the event in Cape Town, we had Laura from the University of Stellenbosch's Business School. And what they had actually done is they had created an internal LinkedIn group for all of their employees. And it was a process, but they incentivized all of them to join the group, and that was their main communication process. That's where they shared content, that was where they were talking about what was happening. So we see that opportunity emerging as well. And for brands, it gives you the opportunity to stake your logo, your name around a particular topic. So you can start thinking about, how do I own that particular conversation? If we look how people are accessing the platform, it's interesting that desktop over the last year or so has actually gone up. So, for a mobile-first market, the fact that mobile is actually such a small component, people just using mobile, and it makes sense, because if you think about LinkedIn, it's one of the few social platforms, professional platforms, that are actually allowed at most big businesses, most big companies. And it's seen as an acceptable practice for you to be on LinkedIn during business hours, connecting and speaking to individuals. So just looking at some of the job titles, obviously there's a lot of opportunity for sales, but for senior business decision makers, from an industry perspective, financial services, IT, mining and metals are coming through quite strongly. And then from a seniority perspective, I think what's really interesting is that we're seeing this continuous influx of entry-level and job starters, which is really important. Once you're a CEO, theoretically you stay a CEO until you retire. But what's amazing is this influx of young talent, this young voice. It's a great opportunity, and it continues to reinvigorate the ecosystem and the conversations. Just looking at some of the biggest companies that are represented, I was very, very impressed to see CNBC Africa as the biggest commercial business. When we started doing this exercise, it was a complete outlier for us. We didn't even consider it. And then if you go and you look at their company page and you look at the type of content they share, they've got a massive, massive African footprint. If we look at the rest, I mean, it makes complete sense. Like Dimension Data, Standard Bank, Sasol, we're big in the financial services, in the telecommunications, in the IT space, and in mining and metals. And the reason why we took out the educational entities, because they're a little bit of a cheat. So the moment you study at these universities and you update your education, you automatically become an alumni and follower of the brand. So it's a great way for them to start speaking to individuals. From a company size perspective, we're obviously a country of pretty big enterprises and corporates. But what's amazing is this side hustle I keep talking about, this job economy. So we see that these SMBs, when you roll them up, actually make up a bigger percentage of the audience. So people are looking for opportunities, people are looking for consultancies. And from a corporate function perspective, it really is about operations and business development and IT. So good opportunity. So one of the things I want to talk to you about, one of the things I want to incentivize you about is the fact that we have really amazing data. So it is LinkedIn's USP, and we can help you get access to that data. So there are types of reports that we can call, something called audience analyzers, trending content. So we can look at your particular audience, the people that you want to speak to, and we can see how many people there are on the platform. We can look at their behavior. Are they more active or less active? Are they on mobile or desktop? And then we can see what type of content they're actually consuming. So if we just look at the sort of South African audience as a whole, we can see that it's primarily split into sort of two sectors. So the one is about professional interests, big topics that are happening within the economy. And then the second one is about smaller topics that are relevant to me as an individual. So if I think about genders, if I think about diversity, social, political, the ecosystem. From a top engaged, topic specific, we see this mixture again between what's happening on a macro level and what's happening with me personally. I'm very pleased, considering who's in the room, that digital marketing is the biggest trending topic within the ecosystem. So for you as thought leaders, this is a clear opportunity to start using the platform to establish your own brands and your own voices. If we look at just some sort of the bigger topics, the bigger content pieces that are relevant, we see a lot of engagement around recruitment and jobs, we see around diversity, and we see around sustainability. So these are high-level things that people love talking about. We obviously see from a domain perspective, a lot of people utilize LinkedIn, so referring to communications and connections internally, sharing some LinkedIn data. But we also see things like YouTube. People are really big on video, and then things like Forbes, Business Insider, Inc., CNBC. So LinkedIn is not just a platform on its own, but it's also an amalgamation of our news feeds. I don't have to go to each of these different spaces anymore. I can get to this one news feed that amalgamates all of this information for me. And then lastly, LinkedIn is also about discovery. So an example I used is, if we think about CEOs and CXOs of businesses smaller than 200 individuals, we start seeing some of the nuances that differ in these audiences. So for them, because they have smaller management pools, because they are typically more responsible for their own businesses, they don't have an IT department, they don't have a marketing, there's a lot of responsibility across the line. We'll see that they spend a little bit more time understanding the nuances in their business. So what's happening within business or banking and venture capital. I want to understand about ethics and renewability and the health of my employees. And I'm very interested in what's happening on the continent. So if we just look at things that, if I look at specific keywords across our entire continent that are driving the conversation, the biggest keywords are Africa, South Africa, economic opportunity, growth. So those are the conversations that are really driving the continent. Thank you.
Thanks, Boris. I think we'll deal with the questions around price in the panel. That's a good one. There's a few extra product-related questions that came through from the previous session that you can answer, maybe Laura, also even Anthony, that I'm going to just deal with quickly now. How would you recommend using video for thought leadership? Is one of the questions. Who wants to handle that?
That's the greatest question. So I mean, if you are trying to get your executives to do thought leadership pieces and to position themselves, then the idea of getting them to write a 1,000-word article is pretty daunting. But luckily, we all have video. We all have video recorders in our pockets. We've got cell phones. So Anthony doesn't know this, but after today, when we're all going to lunch, I'm going to ask him to do a little video, a takeout out of his session, 5 minutes. And that, you have this opportunity. Take out your cell phone. If there's a relevant topic, if something's happened in your industry, if something has changed, if you just want a thought around a particular topic, take out that cell phone, take the video for a few seconds. You might edit it, you might not, but I mean, it's the best tool we have for thought leadership.
Okay, that's great. This is probably one for you, Laura. Will insights be available on retargeting by end engagement? I think by end engagement.
I would think this question relates to ad view engagement that's coming next year. We're still forming the product, but basically it'll be based on product engagement, and demographics will be available. So I would assume that's the answer you're looking for. But currently, yes, if you run a retargeting campaign, you have access to demographics already. We just need to have insights tag implemented, and then you have access to campaign demographics. So it's slightly different to website demographics, but campaign demographics also live on Campaign Manager. If that wasn't what you wanted to ask, I'll be here for lunch as well, so I'm happy to help.
Maurice, you'll take this one. Will you be offering the South African Rand as a currency with Campaign Manager for all products?
So, This is a great question. It's right there. Right there.
Boogerangs accepted.
So
Straight off,
at the moment, there's a balance. You can either buy in rands and get buy in rands and use your credit card, or you can get invoicing and it's in dollars. And we are really working hard on the problem, and we've got a few solutions. But what we've seen, so we obviously do a lot of time tracking the difference between the rand and the dollar. There's very little differences in terms of currency fluctuations whether you buy in rands or dollars. If you want to, we can help you give some currency stability, and make sure that whatever you book in rands or dollars, we help you get the best out.
In other words, turn left will take the pain. We love to do that.
John's other name is Budget Bob. That's not anything to talk about.
Got my bikini in the boot. When will it be possible to edit video captions? Laura?
To edit.
Edit video captions.
So recently uploading is available. Anything around editing, we're making a lot of changes on the platform, as I briefly mentioned. So being able to edit a video ad or a carousel ad, lead-in forms, probably the one that's close to the heart. Those little things will be released in instances, but all of next year, once you start to hear more about objective-based buying, the company managed platform will allow for editing. For caption uploads, because it's an upload, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work with editing of a video, but I can take that as a feedback and certainly put it in the radar of the minds working behind it.
Just keep standing because there's a couple more.
I just want to add, out of that whole product roadmap, the thing that I'm most excited about is the fact that you can actually do some admin work on your phone. Like you don't have to, if you are at an event and you want to talk, on behalf of the company, you don't have to go and open your laptop.
Thanks. MJ asks, how do we block trolls? Other platforms allow me to block users from company pages.
You can send feedback at any time. You can also block someone. There's actually the opportunity for you to just remove that person completely from your ecosystem. If you're having issues with that, let us know, but the opportunity is there for you to cancel any noise. So back to Mario's point, some of us have got 1,500, 2,000 connections, and we don't want that noise. So you can actually, as on other platforms, just right-click on the post from that person and just do not want to hear from them. If you want to not completely delete them off your network, there's a... Yes, you want to ask a question about that?
It's specifically for company pages. So for my personal profile, I can do that. But I find there are certain malicious individuals on a company page, and I cannot block them from seeing company updates.
Got it. So it's slightly different because it's a free platform, so people can access content that's publicly available, company page being one of them. We see less harm. So again, I did work a lot with telco clients, and one of the learnings that we took from that is that there will always going to be noisy clients and disruptive. On LinkedIn, less so, because it's attached to your professional brand and personal brand. We see a lot worse on other platforms. But you just need to address that. The brands that do successfully is the ones that engage in a two-way conversation. If somebody's not happy with your brand, you shouldn't just cancel that noise, you should address it. So currently, it's a free space for all, so I don't have an answer that actually can solve for that, apart from communicating back.
All right, more. Is LinkedIn planning on being more transparent, such as releasing stats on device performance delivery? While we're there, we can also deal with, can you adjust frequency of ads and campaigns too?
Yeah, so two questions. So firstly, device. Now with first-party impression tracking using Google Ad Manager, double click. You use it yourself, so you would know the traffic that's actually been coming from devices using double-click. So LinkedIn's data, so you know who's accessed or viewed your ads using devices, but you're never going to be able to target by device. Well, I shouldn't use the word never, not in the future, let's put it that way. I did ask that question many times, but as a business we took the stance and approach to target our members, whatever device they decide to use. So you can see where the traffic is coming from using double-click, but you can't target by device, and that's not coming on the platform. Carrie?
Just a question on that, is that often taken into consideration the audience size that you're targeting when you're using certain ads, but then there are certain ad types that are only available on desktop, but when you look at the audience size, it's not taking that into consideration. So from my perspective, that's when I've had the issue with device targeting, because you want to know how big your audience is, given that they can only see your ad on desktop?
So all of the audience forecasting that we have available, either if you work with Turn Left Media, is looking back at audience availability, and it does take into account the devices. So dynamic ads, most of you would have seen an ad with your picture and the logo. That's what we call dynamic. You can follow the company or you can take an action. That's available on desktop only. And it's the same for programmatic, because LinkedIn decided not to put NPUs or display banners on mobile. So the forecasting does take that into account. And great news is that with objective-based buying, the sort of revamped and facelift of Campaign Manager, we give you access to that. So what's going to happen is that you'll be starting off by objective, selecting what you're trying to achieve, and then you're going to select your targeting, and then you're going to go into the products, and you can select different products, and in the right-hand corner of Campaign Manager, you will see the audiences build, and things will change depending if you're choosing text ads, which is basically our PPC or sort of link ads. It will be a very different audience size and benchmarks than if you choose sponsored content, video views, etc. So that's going to become much more self-service in the near future. We're already rolling out, we're at 3%, so some of you might be exposed to it already, but if you're not, next year for sure. Reach and frequency, did I not address that? But there was a second part.
Frequency.
Should I or?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So, with other platforms you have visibility over reach and frequency, with LinkedIn you don't. We're looking to changing that, and somebody asked the same question directly to me in person in Cape Town, and I've messaged our product team. One person, that person and CC two others. So I'm still waiting on the answer on when that's going to come, because I appreciate that's needed. Some of you who work in Turn Left Media, I'm not entirely sure what the service threshold is on that, but you can access those reports through those guys. Because we have got on the back end, now it's just a matter of when we're going to make it available and whether we're going to allow for optimization against those metrics. So more to come on that, but unfortunately I didn't get a black and white answer yet.
Thanks. Marius, take the last one before we sit down for the panel. Asking about which day of the week is more active on LinkedIn. Could desktop be higher, etc.?
So we generally see that it varies per ad unit, obviously it varies per audience. But we generally see that running campaigns between Tuesdays and Thursdays are better, depending on the type of ad. And it also depends on what the purpose is of the content that you're sharing. So we talk about leaning forward or leaning back. So when you're running a campaign and you're looking for short engagements, if you're trying to break through the clutter, then shorter pieces of content work really well during the week. If you run longer pieces of content, and I've seen it work really well, where it's a 3 or a 5 or a 10-minute video, running it over weekends or doing in-mails that are delivering over the weekend generally perform better because people have time to read longer pieces of content, to read white papers, to sit and watch a full video. And then the good thing about things like sponsored content and sponsored emails is, because it lives across devices, it isn't necessarily when's the best time. It will surface when the person is available on the platform.
Great. Okay, I think I'm conscious there are more questions, but I think we need to move on at this point in time. We're going to go on to the panel discussion. There was a nice one that I'm going to bring up from William. He says, getting so much great value out of this Indaba today, how do we keep building on the momentum gain going forward? We'll just have to have another one, huh? Very soon. Sam, can we do one next month, huh? All right? All right, I'm going to introduce you now to, thanks Marius, big thank you. I'm going to introduce you now to Sam Parker. A lot of you around the room will know Sam. We report directly to Sam. He's our account director on the partnership markets. He has the interesting task of dealing with some of the partners in EMEA, and more specifically Scandinavia and Sub-Saharan Africa. I mean, you couldn't get more polar opposites, could you, than those two markets, So he's well-rounded, I think, when it comes to challenges and dealing with partner markets. Sam's background has been with LinkedIn over 3 years now, and dealing with us at Turn Left during that whole time, actually, from the transition of Spark Media into Turn Left. On his profile, he's worked goes back to Clippers in Clippers promotions, and he did a lot of work with governments in Great Britain on their campaign. What's not on his LinkedIn profile is that he's just become a father. That's why he's losing his hair so quickly. And that he's a sailor, and a very good sailor. I think did you sail for Great Britain, or were you almost sailing? Yes, you sailed for Great Britain. So anybody needs some questions and answer on the sailing market, please come to our resident sailor. Sam, I'm going to hand over to you to introduce the panel.
Thanks, John Bolts. Right, folks. Let's get this rolling. So, how are we doing over here? Swag. Has everyone had enough swag? Anyone need more swag? Okay. Yeah. Trip to London? Anyone need a trip to London? Now we're talking. Lovely. Please stay to the end. You will be rewarded for your enthusiasm. What a lot of passion today. It's genuinely encouraging to see. There's two people I'm going to introduce now who, without doubt, are passionate, which is why we nicely approached them to come and have a conversation. Why not? You know, what's better than having a chat about something that we're all quite passionate and close to, LinkedIn. I am very delighted to say that we're being joined by Kerry from Wonderland and Herman from Media Shop, who are going to have a little chat with us. And Marius is also going to join our panel. So can I ask you to give them a warm round of applause and just step on up. Yeah, maybe sit here, because Marius is Mr. Tickle. Yeah, Herman, you got the short straw, sorry about that. Okay. Right, folks. Let's get this rolling. What we're going to do first is just talk about Slido. I think you've got the idea, you know, we put questions out there and we can kind of make this even more relevant to you. So if you see something in the feed that you actually like us to cover, please upvote it, get it to the top of the feed so that we can get that talked about. And also, feel free to pose more questions, and by all means in the live as well, just stick your hand in the air and I'll do my best to spot you. So we're going to start with some easy stuff. Lara took 16 hours, was it? Or was it just 14 hours to get to Stellenbosch? We're going on the Cresta run of a panel discussion. We'll start on the nursery slopes with what's not on your LinkedIn profile. Morris, I think we may have covered that quite a lot with you already. Maybe we should hear a little bit more from Herman and Kerry. Herman, would you like to go first?
Ladies first.
Okay, in terms of what's not on my profile, I'm actually a really big nerd. I love books and movies, and my company did the advertising for Comic-Con last month, and it was like the greatest thing that ever happened to me was Comic-Con coming to Africa. So yeah, I've got massive fandom. I'm part of lots of fandoms, which is really cool.
From our side, I think everything that's on Facebook is that's simple. But yeah, no, pretty much just I keep it very professional, and yeah, my stuff that might endear me or not endear me, I take the risk on Facebook and try and put my best foot forward on LinkedIn.
Very wise too, for all the reasons we've been hearing about.
So, aside from being a nerd, I'm also what they call an AFOL, which is an adult fan of Lego. Cement the nerdness for the rest of my life.
I never even knew AFOL was a thing. I just expect Lego might feature more in my life quite soon, so maybe I'll be one too. So, what about the conversation? I mean, we've been downloading information to the audience this last while, and a lot to digest, right? There's been a lot of subject matter covered. If we boil this down into nuggets, is there a particular thing that you've noticed or something that you've picked up from the presentations this morning that you maybe didn't know or weren't quite so aware of? Is there one thing that sticks in your mind perhaps? And what would that be?
Yeah, so I enjoyed hearing about the product roadmap. I was in London at the LinkedIn offices in August, and they've actually improved the product roadmap already since then. So I enjoy seeing how quickly the platform is evolving and how many different ways we can leverage it. And particularly being able to leverage off things like hashtags and groups, I think that's going to play a very big role in marketing going forward, especially in thought leadership. I think that's what every company needs to do is position themselves as a thought leader, because the organic side of what we do is just as important as the paid social, because the audience is going to respond so much more to a brand that they know is leading the industry or is creating great content that's relevant to that audience. So, yeah.
So I quite like that Find Me feature. That was quite nice. And it's, I think what's also, I think there wasn't anything particularly sort of standout for me, except that it just cemented a few thoughts that I think we've been thinking for a while now. And that is that if you're coming to LinkedIn for quick wins, it's, I think, the wrong place. And that's a big challenge both for us as agency and then for clients as well, to be able to push back and recognize that if you're going to invest in LinkedIn, it's a slow burn. Easy come, easy go, I think is not, well, it's relevant, but it's not what's going to drive success in this space. And I think that, to sort of echo your sentiments around content marketing, it's your currency in that space. And obviously, if you trade weak, you're going to have a pretty weak return on your investment there. Really looking also at how LinkedIn helps sort of really drive full funnel, all the way from that awareness, engage, and optimize. And so I think what's quite a unique feature is that content marketing score that you guys offer, which is, in theory, a great barometer of how you measure against your competition, and sort of keeps you honest in terms of making sure that you don't just try shortcuts to people into their feeds, but actually make sure that you spend the time in understanding your market and generate content that's relevant.
Thank you. That was pretty comprehensive, I think. And a couple of recaps. And one of the comments you made there was about a content marketing score, which, if you're not aware, it's a bit of reporting that we can build for you, which helps you to understand how you're performing against competitors. If you need that for your business, then please get in touch with one of the folks at Turn Media. We can help generate that stuff so that you can understand exactly where you stand, which is vital if you're going to be successful, of course. And the other thing, on tips and tricks, well, two questions. People who use the app, has everyone got the app on their phone? Just quick show of hands. Yeah, that's pretty much universal. Do people know that you can synchronize your app with your Outlook calendar, so LinkedIn will actually give you notifications before you go to have meetings with people? I find that amazingly helpful, because you can actually find common ground before you actually go and sit down with people, which, if you're in the business of building relationships, it's gold, right? So, back to the conversations. We've talked a little bit about the content this morning. I've been working on the feed down here of questions, and one of the big themes that I picked up was in the room, we've got big corporations, we've got smaller businesses, we've got entrepreneurs, we've got startups, all sorts. And a question for those latter groups, I think, is how to get started. How do we, in the early stages, get to the point where we can become successful using LinkedIn? Whilst we've got all this talent here, maybe just a top couple of things from each of you as to what you would suggest are the best ways to start. And would you want to start, Karen? Was that a raised eyebrow?
I mentioned this in advance, I'm a bit good. What was it? Advice to get started. Yeah, so my biggest piece of advice would definitely just be throw yourself in the deep end and just experiment. That's where most of my learnings with LinkedIn has come from, is a lot of test and learns. So we're experimenting with different audience targeting, different ad types, finding what works. It's okay to fail. I've done that with some of my ad types that just have not been successful at all, and then some things have been wildly successful, so definitely that. And then also
give campaigns a lot of time. As Herman was saying, this is not a quick fix platform. It is something that requires a lot of time for your campaigns to gain traction and to start making a difference and start actually reaching your KPIs. So it's, yeah, if you're going to be running campaigns for 1 week or two, don't expect them to be wildly successful. This is a platform where probably the best sort of campaigns would be like your quarterly campaigns, so something that runs for like 3 months. That's when you're going to see your best returns in all your KPIs. Yeah, so give it time.
Okay, you just put me in there. Okay. Now, I think that you know the one thing that LinkedIn, as I sort of alluded to earlier, was that it forces you to plan. You literally cannot just wing it. And I think because of the quality of the audience, you know, it might be a lot smaller, but it's definitely a quality over quantity space. And I think, you know, someone who takes the time to read your content and then share it, that carries a lot of weight. But you need to obviously really kind of take a step back from what I think current digital marketing has enabled, which is a lot of that sort of almost instant gratification mentality to marketing, where we have to go back to recognizing we need to take a long view to this and build the relationship. But what that does do, and I've seen it through a friend of mine, David Graham at Deloitte, who has really leveraged the space to almost create a little bit of a sort of best practice guide on how you can leverage those online conversations to drive offline meetings. But they take time. But you know, to someone like David's credit, he was able to articulate that back to the business that showed value. To the point where I think they got a bit worried that the David Graham LinkedIn brand was becoming stronger than Deloitte's. But you know, it's definitely something which can yield benefit and a lot of positive results. And you know, I currently have the privilege of working on South African Tourism's global account, and for the National Conventions Bureau. You know, LinkedIn is a big part of our future strategy. We recognise that, you know, we want to start to make South Africa the destination of choice for business travel, for what they call pleasure these days. And you know, LinkedIn is the de facto place where we're going to be doing that. And I'm not just saying it because it's, you know, I'm here, it's logic, right? I mean, we can literally get to the accuracy of the targeting is phenomenal, the reporting, and I mean, Maurice will know, and we started this journey on Jaguar Land Rover in 2011 with Jenny. We were pushing LinkedIn for reporting that they didn't even know they needed. So they've really come a long way, which is great. And I think, you know, I really encourage everyone to really make it a strong part of your social strategy.
I think the previous session when we were asking when the best time of day is to post, like, Herman is scary when he asks for data. So when we started out the Jaguar Land Rover journey, you can obviously export all of the data organically and when you run paid media. And it was looking at it per day, you know, around the hour bracket, and then the type of content that was being shared, and looking at sort of the general upliftment. And if you put in the time to understand what's working, you see some really great results. But I think it's divided up between personal and professional, and personal and business, and it goes hand in hand. So from a personal perspective, if you try and establish your brand, if you're trying to get going, then you've got all of this amazing free LinkedIn data. So you can go and you can find something that you're passionate about, and that's probably the most important thing, because it takes time and it takes effort. So, you know, if you're not passionate about you know, blockchain or the Internet of Things, like, you're not going to write articles about it. So find something that you're passionate about, and then try and think who's that going to be relevant for. Then go onto LinkedIn, use the search functionality, and go find those people. Like, how do they look like? What are their job titles? Where are they located? Like, what's the content they're already clicking on? Like, that's all free stuff. Go and do the research, because then you know what's the tone, what they're engaging with, and then start thinking about how you push your own brand out there. And then from a professional perspective, from a business perspective, the one thing that I see very, very rarely is people using this A/B testing functionality that they have on the platform, and it's such a vital piece for getting better performance. So LinkedIn's got this algorithm when you run campaigns that determines success. So it's who you're trying to reach, how much you're willing to spend, and then the big part of it is like what content that you're sharing. So we generally see somebody take something from another platform and just bang it on, and then you only have the audience and the bid to work with, which isn't that great. But you can go and you can change the call out that you're working with, or you can change the imagery, or you can change the landing page. And just these small variations, whether you're calling out the person or you're calling out the business, that has a massive impact. And you can run all of those concurrently with very, very little effort. So don't just assume the theory. Don't just assume what's going to work for Jaguar Land Rover is going to work for your business. Like, test it, because it's a great thing about digital. You can always be testing. So we generally recommend having 3 or 4 pieces of content continuously in circulation, because it avoids the fatigue thing, it helps with the frequency thing, and it keeps people engaged. I love standing on my little soapbox now.
That was good. And question for Herman. I noticed in your last comments you talked about 2 well-known, very recognisable South African brands. And clearly there's a lot of interest in how would they influence a buyer's journey. And I'm wondering, how do you advise, how do you help a brand like that to navigate that B2B journey when thinking about LinkedIn? Are there some steps that you would break it down into? Could you describe a little bit about how you set up your thinking for that?
Is there a particular brand? Okay, so it's obviously different, right, for a retail brand or an automotive brand or a DMO, destination marketing organization for the TLA brands. So I think what really makes this such a great platform to use is the data that we can get from it. So it really takes a lot of the hit and miss out of the equation. So it really allows us to, I think, if you're already failing, it's not because the platforms aren't working, it's because you haven't planned for it properly. So we need to, like I said earlier, make sure that you understand what content is likely to be consumed. And what makes it nice is the fact that the platform is obviously evolving, albeit at a slower rate, I think, than other social networks, and I don't have that strategic thing to kind of like sit back and see what the others do and then sort of go to market with something like your video, for example. But that's fine, because at least you're getting there. But it allows us to then make sure that when we go to market with something, then it's got the biggest chance of succeeding, because obviously leveraging the data and understanding what people actually want. But I think preceding that, like any good social strategy, you should spend a great deal of time listening and understanding what people are talking about in your vertical. And through, I saw, not to do a flag for Crimson, but I saw Crimson floating around. So we also use Crimson for SAT, and our strategic approach is definitely going to be preceded with a good deal of listening and understanding what is it that people that in ICT, in France, in Belgium, Switzerland, UK, USA, what are they talking about? So when we go to market, we actually we have our rubber hits road a lot faster. So I think spend the time planning, and then the tools, the team, it's all the ingredients for success.
Thank you. Kerry, this one's for you. As an English man to a South African lady, my question is, my question is, South African audiences, you know them very well, and Marius talked a little bit earlier about some of their behaviours, reading more than perhaps sharing, and that must drive certain tactics when it comes to setting up some of the campaigns that you're thinking about, both domestically and then perhaps differently internationally. And I know you've got experience of both. How do you handle that when you're thinking about your local market in separately? The international market alongside that?
Not sure if I'm the right person for that question, because on LinkedIn I don't actually work in the local market at all. So obviously I work on Microsoft as a client, but I work almost exclusively in Western Europe. So, and that's where all of our LinkedIn comes from. So, yeah, the tactics actually vary a lot when you're looking at internationally. Some of the targeting that we've looked at is like job title targeting versus skills targeting. Some countries respond great to one form of targeting and others not. Also looking at different sort of content, what they consume. So one market might respond beautifully to a piece of content, and another one they literally can't get off the ground.
And so I'll stop you there.
Okay.
So Herman can dig me out of my hole. Thinking about these.
I'm sure I've got a big enough radar. I think the one comment I just wanted to quickly make, and that's about brand safety, because that's obviously been on top of people's minds a lot lately, and for good reason. And I was just, doing the trying to sort of tick the nerd box myself and doing some research in regards to this. I saw that on eMarketer there was some research done, an article of research done by Gum, who I've never heard of, and Digiday. And in November 2017, they polled US marketers, and 2/3 have at least experienced at least one issue of brand safety in the last 12 months. And they all concur that Facebook is the least safe environment, which incidentally, I mean, YouTube kind of like got this ball rolling, I think, with its issues, but they say Facebook is the least safe and LinkedIn the most safe. So I think also, it's a great place where, brands can kind of, really express without too much worry about being associated with, the tribe that comes along a lot of other social networks.
Yeah, thank you. And a quick final one from me before, I hope maybe John, who's browsing the feed over my shoulder, could feed me perhaps the most relevant final question. Let's keep it simple. Connection requests. So it was a couple of questions on this in the feed when I was looking just now. What is the sort of process you apply to responding to and accepting or declining connection requests? That seems like a popular question.
Well, in terms of like how I request connections, I tend to, I like to request connections to people I've met in a business environment sort of quite straight after I've met them, to establish that link, to know that that you're making an effort to build that relationship, because I think everyone can agree that in the industry that we're in, it's who you know, and LinkedIn is a big part of that. In terms of accepting connection requests, again, I get a lot from people who I've been in meetings with, so I've had recent sort of face-to-face interactions with them, so I know that they're people that we want to connect with. But I get a lot of requests from recruiters. I have a massive, recently, there's been a huge demand online for digital strategists. So, there's been a massive...
I think your line manager is twitching up there.
Yes, recruiters, I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this, recruiters are on the hunt in a big way. But I think it's also something that's valuable to have is, again, to connect with recruiters so that you are open to other job opportunities, you know what other people are doing out there, you know what companies are looking for in terms of like your role, and I think that adds a lot of value to you as well.
Yep. Thank you. Herman, do you feel the same way?
No, I'm a lot less judicious about who I accept on LinkedIn, I must say. So like on Facebook, I'm hardly, those I take the opposite approach. Facebook, I really need to know you personally, but on LinkedIn, unless you're a media owner, I'll probably accept. And I was a media owner, so I've been waiting so long to say that.
If you're saying that, I just hesitate to ask Marius, but let's do it. Come on.
I just want to say to Curious, because you guys are all the purple magical unicorns, so that's why people are stalking you, because they know you're on LinkedIn, and that's why. Ironically enough, back when I started at Abide 10 years ago, Herman was the guy who interviewed me, so now you need to know the standards were pretty low. I think when it comes to connection requests, I generally I'm a little bit more judicious because I want to make sure that I get the best quality out of it. So I'll go and actually look at how many shared connections we have, what type of content they're posting, and then I'll accept them. And then I've got a little reminder in my calendar every 3 months. I've got a little hour blocked out, and I'll go and I'll look at the profiles and the people I have connected with and haven't connected with, and I remove some of them because if you're not getting the value out of it, if the right content and stuff isn't surfacing, then that's when you don't use the platform. So.
Some good strategies right there. A question from John via Slido is around agencies and selling LinkedIn. I think perhaps the way to pose this is around what barriers particularly you find when selling LinkedIn to clients. And I think you can probably take that logically to the most obvious objection, which is cost. And what do you do? Simple as that.
Okay, yeah, so that is like obviously the biggest question that clients are coming across, because they're used to like the pricing of Facebook and Twitter, which is very low. But to me, the value in LinkedIn lies in the mentality with which the audience approaches the platform. I mean, when you're advertising on Facebook, you're not just competing with your competitors for ad space, you're also competing with the latest cat video and idiot jumping in front of building and smashing his face in. Like that's who you're competing with for attention. But on LinkedIn, that's not the case. I mean, with LinkedIn, people are going onto the platform to either learn more about their industry, to educate themselves, they're going there with that business mentality. And especially if you're in the B2B space, say for instance, like your leads can be very expensive. I mean, I've run campaigns that my leads can cost like $200, $300, $400 a lead. But if your lead is to buy a car and that car's worth 2 million rand, who cares if you're paying 5,000 rand a lead? Because you only need to convert like 1 in every 200 leads to get over extra 2,000 leads in order to get your money back. And particularly what I do is a lot in the IT decision maker space, in the business decision maker space. So yeah, the leads are very expensive because it's a very in-demand audience. But then again, what if they're buying hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of software? So yeah, it's an expensive platform, which also look at the mentality and also how well the leads convert. So with Microsoft, we look at what we call MAQL, so your qualified leads. So, and the conversion from a lead to a qualified lead is like double, triple on LinkedIn than it is on any other platform. So that's also something you need to take into consideration. So it's worth the money investment, especially you've got to look at your end objective. So if your end objective is to sell a high value item, then you should be willing to pay for high value leads and awareness and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like you get what you pay for. So obviously, once again, it's quality over quantity. But I mean, in saying that, we ran a recent short burst for Mandela Centenary Key, which you'll remember, and we averaged 45 cents cost per view domestically. So that wasn't too bad. I don't think that's like that much more expensive than what we paid. But of course, that was an awareness, strategy. When you're driving low funnel, conversion, obviously, I also like the fact that the lead gen and such like integrate seamlessly with a lot of CRM systems, so you can really get a sort of holistic view of what's really driving, your conversions. And to your point, if you are, selling a premium service or product, you don't mind paying to get quality leads. And I think, once again, it's just kind of like taking a slightly different approach to LinkedIn than you would to the sort of, whether not even just Facebook or Twitter, but also even Google, so, yeah.
I'm sorry, the last thing I just want to add is I think there's this obvious fallacy in terms of attribution. So people always, because of the way that the systems don't talk to each other, like traditional doesn't talk to digital and Google doesn't talk to Facebook and vice versa. I think there's this thing that people only think about where the last action happened. But there's a lot of interaction across these platforms that are required in order to get somebody to convert. So The data says that it takes 10 pieces of content before somebody takes an action, and that only 25% of people, when they're exposed to the initial message, they're going to reach out to you. The rest of them, it takes time. It's about wooing your clients, wooing your brands. So, just the ability to reach the right person. I always say, there's 575 million members, but there's 10,000 people in Antarctica. If you want to reach them, then great, we can do that. Or if you're looking for CFOs in the IT industry in Santon who have got bachelor's degree, so the data helps. If you think about other social platforms, I created my profile, and I might only update it when it's a big lifetime event. So when I get married, or when I have a kid, or when it's a big anniversary. So the rest of it is all behavioral. But on LinkedIn, when I change my jobs, when I get a better education, I want to share that with the world, and I want to be seen as being productive and successful. So it's this self-perpetuating database of professionals that we have access to. That comes at a premium, and we're always very unashamed to say about it. And the last thing is, it just allows you to build that relationship, which is so important.
Thank you. So, on behalf of everybody here, I'd like to say thank you, Kerry, Erwin, Marius, please, a warm round of applause. I'll just pass the mic back to John. I think, be passionate. If you're gonna really take some of this forward, it's about passion, it's about enthusiasm, and I think that's come across in spades. John, would you like to?
Thank you, Sam. Thanks very much. Big thank you to Sam too. I've been getting carried away with all the questions, and we're running out of time. So, Anthea, Ayanda, put your hands up over there. There's our Johannesburg account managers that are handling LinkedIn from TurnLeft. Please, questions, take them to there in the breakouts. Obviously, Marius, myself, or anybody else that's been on the panels or in the audience today. We're going to wrap up now, actually, and just have a quick look at what good looks like on LinkedIn. Marius is going to make some awards to a couple of companies here today, just to take them through some marketing awards and share the breakdown. We're honouring businesses, big corporates, SMEs, and startups in that process. And let's get it rolling straight away. Marius, maybe you can give the background.
So LinkedIn globally has what it calls the Marketing Awards, which celebrates B2B excellence. And for the first time, we really thought that we would use this opportunity to launch the South African version. And there's definitely a lot of learnings that we're still taking into it. But we really are looking at how brands are utilizing the platform, both from a paid and an organic space. And we used Sam Parker and his amazing first party behind the scenes super data to try and understand how this is all put together. So we're doing this in 3 categories, and hopefully next year we expand on this a little bit. So we look at corporates, larger than 500 employees, small and medium enterprises, and then top startups. So from a corporate perspective, the 3 finalists are APSA. They utilize the platform very effectively. They use all of the relevant marketing opportunities to drive awareness, so they're very content focused, reaching the right individuals. And then they've got a unified strategy across their business units. So there's always a question around, how do I manage my own space on the platform? Do I utilize multiple different company pages or showcase pages? APSA's got a focused brand strategy, and then they utilize the single platform to drive the communication. And then the usage of video specifically during their rebranding exercise over the last while. The second nominee is to make life interesting. And we've got them in a little crowd there, so if the fight breaks out, is Standard Bank. So Standard Bank also utilizes the platform particularly well across the own space. We talk a lot about, how do you use it from a paid perspective, but the first thing is getting it right from the own perspective. So making sure that you establish that brand presence, and they have a very nice, diverse portfolio of how they position the brand, and also how they balance it out between selling their products and selling their services, and then utilizing it from an employer branding perspective as well. And then lastly, the University of the Witwatersrand. So it's a strange nomination, but they stand out in the education sector, specifically from an alumni activation perspective. So the thing that I think a lot of brands don't do particularly well on the platform is utilize their own employees. So people find businesses through other people, and we generally tend to rely on getting our consumers going and speaking to our consumers. But alumni as employees driving that online and offline eventing and thought leadership. So the winner for the 2018 corporate is Standard Bank. So there are three things that they do particularly well. As I said, they have a very well thought out diversification strategy across their own spaces. So they have a group page, they have a South African page, one for corporate investment banking and one for wealth. And for each one of those platforms, they attract very different audiences, and the types of communication they have is unique. So you'll see the same topics. So at Standard Bank Group might talk about their tweet initiative, and the same will happen on their corporate investment banking page, but very different communications. So this is what I'm talking about. So examples of what they'll talk about on the group page versus on their corporate page. And then they spend a lot of time making sure that their employer brand fits into that larger communication. So if you think about it, then the people we're looking at from a marketing perspective and from a brand perspective are the same individuals on the platform, and they're using the platform very well to start driving that initiative. On to the second award, SMEs. Oh, sorry, this is the one moment. So can we ask Standard Bank to come up quickly? Okay, so then SMEs, South African tourism, first nominee. Their work on the platform is really amazing. They do larger activities across the likes of Brand SA and South African National Conventions Bureau. And they use this really amazing multi-touch approach that they amplify with lots of paid media. So if you have to market a country, it is particularly difficult, and they do that really well with very nuanced conversations. Then we've got Capitec. They focus very heavily on creating a succinct employer value proposition, so very heavily on the branding space, with marketing messages really focused on shareholders and case studies. And then lastly, Kalula Work. So Kalula Work, if you have never heard of it before, and where's my niece, focuses on the likes of bands or musicians, people who move heavy pieces of equipment or need larger bookings. And what they do particularly well is this key messaging from their employees helps humanizes the brand. So they bring that out to the fore. They tag their employees and they tag their decision makers in their posts. So driving that thought leadership and communication. And the winner is Kalula Work. So again, what's amazing is they use really nice, short, snackable pieces of content, which they share quite regularly. It's very light reading. They showcase their employees, and then they also use multi-touch products. This is some good stuff to showcase their products. So congratulations, guys. And then the last one is Top Startup. And it's amazing to just see how many brands are active on the platform. So first we had a Missing Link. If you've ever seen somebody called Richard Mulholland or Don Packett, they do incredible work on the platform. They share lots of content, very owner driven, and they're very focused on providing lots of free added value right up front, building that trust and credibility. We've got Boss Brands, so Boss the Iced Tea, not somebody that you expect to find on LinkedIn. And they utilize the platform to talk about their CSI activities, their sponsorships of the Quebeca team, and then celebrating, this rich South African history. So they're very clear on where their brand comes from. And then lastly is Yoko. So Yoko is a mobile payment facilitator, do really nice work in calling out the particular audiences and showcasing some of the work they do. And the winner is Boss Brands. We were fortunate enough to present the award in Cape Town, which is why there's a little bit of empty space. But we will we'll make sure that they get the award as well. So from us, that is a congratulations and a thank you.
Well, I think that's kind of a wrap up today. Obviously, we're all at different levels when it comes to LinkedIn, and on different paths of getting to know the platform. We're here to help NLF Media take you on that journey, if it's really like the startup phase to understanding the platform and getting to know it, or the more technical elements and technical questions. Obviously very proud to be part of the team with LinkedIn and have access at any time to get a hold of them and deal with your queries. We are trying to build our case studies on South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. There's one or two, I think Sofa Sun is the one that's promoted on LinkedIn's site. But obviously we want more. We do some great work in East Africa at the moment with Kenya Airways and really dealing with some of their challenges around New York routes, and we'll share that with you at another stage. But we'd like you to get on the poll again, back onto Slido, and just see if the day has worked out for you in your knowledge on LinkedIn. Don't feel any pressure, but I will not tolerate a 1, please. But we understand that time is precious. It's really a big thing to get a big crowd like you guys out today. So mostly we want to thank you folks for coming out today and giving up that time and trying to understand the platform and giving us the opportunity to network with you, take some time, and hopefully we got you for lunch also afterwards. We got some lunch out here outside, so get some real Joburg fresh air into you. Hopefully the rains will come soon, because I can see you all going a bit loco. I'm from Cape Town, we've had enough rain now, and we're not talking about the rain anymore, it's done. But parking, the selfie frame, yes, please, can we get a picture of you guys in the selfie frame afterwards, somewhere, get in there, it's outside. And we'll load you up onto our site and LinkedIn's channel too. But thank you very much for your time again today, and come and chat to us afterwards. Parking tickets are with Sam, if you need a parking ticket, and hope you enjoyed the day out. Thank you.